Welcome back to That's Mental with myself, Isabel Bartak-Healy. Our next guest, I'm so excited to introduce to you. It is Lisa McFarland. She is a relationship and life coach, and I have a million questions to ask you. So let's get started. So you're 35 years married.
35 years together,
35.
30 years married now in January 1st. What is that? 2026.
Okay.
Coming. So yeah, since we've been 18.
Well, congratulations first off.
Thank you.
And then I suppose my follow-up question has to be, what's the secret to a long-lasting, healthy relationship, Lisa?
Therapy. I came to this work because life got really very intense for us. We had 3 children. My mum had passed away. We had a business together. Life was just getting very, very, very intense. And actually, our eldest daughter said, "Are you two still arguing about the same thing over and over again?" And it was all to do with business and all this sort of stuff. And our relationship just got a little bit lost in the weeds, as I tell people. So we went to therapy, and that was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago in Northern Ireland, going to someone to talk about your relationship was not the done thing. So we didn't tell anybody. We went. We went 3 times, and she just said the most sensible things to us. And I just kept coming home in the car going, like, how have we even got this far? How have we even got this far not knowing what our love language is, our attachment style, or argument style? I had a terrible, terrible argument style, which we'll talk about in a wee while. But anyway, so we'd work to do. We did the work and we've never looked back. Yeah. So, and then I just kept saying, everyone needs to know this. Everyone needs to know this. Everyone needs to know this. And as the universe would have it, I got offered to do a life coaching course. And as I did my life coaching course, then other things came along to do with relationships. So I just bunged it all together. And then in COVID, it really went seriously brilliantly well in COVID. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I want to get back into that, as you said, like, you know, the area of, what did you call it again? Cleaning the weeds. What was your phrase?
Lost in the weeds.
Lost in the weeds. Cleaning the
yeah.
weeds. But I suppose let's start with the start of the relationship, right? Because that is often the really exciting part. You know, you have that butterflies in your tummy. You have that attraction with someone. You want to spend all the time with someone. But it's interesting because you mentioned to me that whatever those feelings are that you get at the start of the relationship, they only last for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And then I have an expression which is called coming out of the fog, right? Which is obviously when you see this person and you are obsessed with them and you want to be with them all the time, and you know, you think they're the love of your life. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you come out of the fog and you think to yourself, do I even like you? Do we have anything in common?
It's a really good book. It's called The Honeymoon Effect. But if you're interested in that sort of thing, but also we call it in my world, you know, the rose-coloured tinted glasses,
Yes.
or it's the lust chemicals, you know, so it's spontaneous desire, and it can last at least 4 months, but it can last up to 18 months. So that's the bit where you just can't wait to rip each other's clothes off. Sex is very led by spontaneity, and yes, you're absolutely right. You can't wait to see them, and you're looking on your phone for the text. It's all very dopamine based. It's very chemically based, and that's the time in the relationship that you want to be asking your friends, is this person good for me? Is this person healthy? Trusted friends, family, things like that you want to be saying. And you want to be watching what your new person is like with your friends. A big thing for me personally is, how do people treat waiters, waitresses, any sort of service staff like that. That's really, really important for me. I think it's a big telltale sign of who a person really is. Yeah. Are they generous but not love bomby? You know, it's just getting that. And it's about talking to those trusted friends and going out with those trusted friends, not all the time, but sometimes, just to see how this person reacts with them, all that sort of thing.
And how can we not fall into a trap of kind of the situationships and dating the wrong person like that? Now, I know you mentioned ask your friends, but how can we like not get ourselves into a trap of constantly dating the wrong person, or, as you said, getting into that dopamine fix? Is it just about, I suppose, being realistic with yourself and kind of just taking a deep breath and saying, calm down a small bit now?
Well, what are your core values? What are your core values? What are you looking for in a relationship? Are you just looking for a one night stand? brilliant. Have at it. You go, girl. But are you looking for a relationship? If you're looking for a relationship, you want to go out on a coffee date. You want to go for a walk. You want to resist having sex for a little while. Sorry, I know. Everybody's like, yeah. There are a percentage of women who can have sex and it not affect those chemicals, but they're generally, if we can wait a little while, because once we have sex with somebody, it fogs the mind
Judgment.
even more so. Yeah.
And interestingly, I'm just wondering, is it the same for men and women?
Well, we know that men men feel more emotionally connected through sex in a long-term relationship, and women feel more emotionally connected through conversations and time together in a long-term relationship. So I'm not too sure about the short-term or the early doors, but I do know, and I've talked to enough women over my last 6 years of practice to know that just wait a minute. Just give yourself a minute.
Yes.
Just give yourself a minute. I'm not a dating expert. Some dating experts say at least 5 dates.
Yes.
Yeah. Some dating experts say at least 3 months.
Okay.
Waiting at least 3 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The non-alcohol thing seems to be a big thing as well. I hadn't heard about that till recently. Again, not a dating coach. I hadn't heard about that till recently. But yeah, that seems like a sensible thing to do too, doesn't it?
Like, I mean, like for myself personally, I don't do drinks on first date for that rule, because sure, like, you're going to have your rose tinted glasses on immediately. After 2 Prosecco's, anyone could be gorgeous. You know what I mean? So don't do that to yourself. I think that is a very, very important rule. I suppose coming back to actually looking at people who are in relationships, I thought this was so interesting recently when someone brought it to my attention, which was a lot of times we look for too much in our partner, right? So for instance, they're our best friend, they're our partner, our lover, we might be in business with them, and so it's too much pressure straight away. And I was having this conversation with a group of girls and they said, oh my God, I couldn't work with my partner. How important is it to kind of have really healthy boundaries there in terms of what your spouse is for and what they're not for, so that you have, I suppose, other identities and influences coming into your life for a healthy relationship then?
So we can become very codependent then. If they are our everything, I don't like the term my other half. I actually detest it. You are whole the way you are. You are complete the way you are. If you want to choose somebody to journey this lifetime with, brilliant. Yeah. Companionship. I'm not even in love with the best friend thing, because I don't think we really want to be, that passionate with our best friend, hopefully, so we want to keep that sort of lover, partner, companion. The word soulmate, I also am not mad with. It's a lot of pressure for somebody, isn't it? Esther Perel would be the leading voice in this area, and she's just like, it's ridiculous. It's just all ridiculous. Like, how can one person fill all these boxes? I had a funny thing happen a few weeks ago. I can't remember what happened. A situation happened with the business, and thought I was getting invited on somewhere or something, and it didn't happen. And my the rule in our house is this a listening activity or a fixing activity?
Very
so
good.
if I ring, I'm like, Nige, guess what's happened? Da-da-da. Okay, sweetheart, is this a fixing activity or a listening activity? Because if we're with a guy, they like to fix things, but sometimes we just need to be heard. Yeah.
Yes.
So it went on and on, because my default attachment style is anxious. So I was going on and on. And his face was just getting, he was like, I can't have not much more listening left in me. Not much more listening left. And I was like, do I need to go and find someone else? Yes, you need to go and find someone else, sweetheart. My love of my life, you need to go and find someone else. So like, rang a friend. Do you want to go a walk? Yes, go walk. To her the whole time as well, So we need other people. We need other outlets. We need family. We need friends. We need a business. Working to get business, having a business together from personal experience is so difficult. So difficult, and so difficult to have just a normal conversation of an evening of, oh, that's a terrible thing that happened to you today, sweetheart. You get so emotionally involved in it because, right, well, why did that happen? What did you do? How did that happen? What did you say? It's not like your partner's just coming home and telling you a story that has no relevance to you. So working together, having a business together is a big deal for a relationship.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing from you there is like just the importance of communication and finding your own boundaries, which is different for everyone. So like, I'm even thinking in my head, you know, some people don't like having really serious conversations after past 10 o'clock, you know.
Yeah.
So you might have that, like, I don't like the word rule,
Yeah.
but like a soft boundary of,
a guideline.
you know, let's not talk about money after 10.
Well,
because
I would always say to people, we don't do this at 10 o'clock at night. We don't pod at 10 o'clock at night. We don't have directors meetings at 10 o'clock at night. I always say to people, when it gets to 9:30, 10 o'clock, you can just put a pin on it. You can just say, look, we're not going to agree on this. It's okay. I love you. Let's get a good night's sleep. And we'll have a
circle
chat
back
about
to that
this.
tomorrow.
We'll circle back to that tomorrow. If you're with an avoidant and you're an anxious, that might trigger you, but that's the bit of the inner work. You know, we have to
Yes.
say, I'm trusting you to come back to this tomorrow, you know, and avoidant has to say, no, I will. I promise we'll come back to this tomorrow and we'll get it sorted out. The other thing is that we don't have to agree on everything.
yeah, very true.
I could say that these beautiful walls here are purple and you could say they're pink. Okay, no problem. When we become really codependent, we must agree with everything each other says, and there's no space for that. We actually had a conversation on the way down this yesterday, and my husband said, one of our daughters, he was like, no, well, I actually think she's the better driver. And I was like, oh no, I think that she's the better driver. Back in the day, Isabel, that could have been a 3-day argument for us because we wouldn't have wanted to give up the fact that, no, I was right. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he was even like, look how far we have come.
Yeah. And it's so interesting as well because it's like, just don't sweat the small stuff. Bigger picture, is that something you're going to care about in 3 years? Who got the one up on the other person? Exactly. So it's about kind of like, as you said, doing the inner work and looking at your own ego and wondering, where does that come from?
Not fighting to be right.
Yeah.
Just want to be heard. Now, I will say, I do tell people to sweat the small stuff, as in who's carrying the mental load. Are we actually prioritizing our relationship? Are we able to communicate like that? I totally get what you mean. Like, we don't have to argue if these walls are pink or purple. Like, okay, interesting, brilliant, you know? But definitely sweat the small stuff when it comes to looking after your relationship, caring for your relationship. If you're having the same argument over and over and over again, even if it's about a silly thing, it's that grit that will get in the gears and really will stall you, you know.
You mentioned attachment style there, which I find so interesting, you know. And obviously, I feel like maybe there's people who are listening or watching right now who've also read the book Attached. It's just so interesting to me because, you know, you're reading something and you're like, whoa, I am anxious, I am avoidant. And, you know, you can be part of you could be secure with a little bit of anxious, or you could be avoidant. So for those that are listening or watching, will you explain what they are? And also, I suppose, the biggest thing to look out for as well is anxious and avoidant. Because if I'm right in saying this, the pool of people out there that are single, the men are avoidant.
Well, what we know is secure attachment styles seem to find each other.
Yes.
And then they build a lovely relationship. And then it leaves all the anxious and avoidance. You know, so in my practice, I found that anxious and avoidance are attracted to each other like a moth to a flame. Sure, isn't it great? It gives you something to be anxious about. You know, they're avoiding, so it gives me something about they're being anxious, so I must avoid that at all costs, you know. What we find is that people haven't seen healthy conflict growing up in their family of origin. So they've either seen parents avoid, or parents be really anxious and argue for days and days and days. Our job is to become secure. Our inner work, our job is to become secure. I am a pretty secure person and I have done a lot of work on myself. But when I get activated or triggered, my default is anxious. So it's about recognizing that I'm activated, my nervous system is activated. Hold on a second. Let me do some breathing exercises. Let me regulate my nervous system. Let me find out what's really going on here for me. And then come back to your partner with when that happened, I felt. And then our partner, who more often than not has gone to avoidant land, their job is to say, okay, I hear you. I didn't intend to make you feel like that. There was not one cell in my body that planned to make you feel like that, but I hear you and I'm sorry. Yeah. And that's it, done with a wee bow on the top, you know? And that's how I know people say it's not that easy, Lisa. It's not that easy. It takes a lot of regulation, and sometimes you can be in that, and you can be like, okay, oh no, hold on, wait a second, I'm getting activated again. Or a partner might say, I'm getting activated here. I know I want to go off to avoidant land. Give me a minute, give me 10 minutes to regulate myself again and come back. I talk about it like a rupture. And then we have to learn to sit in the emotional tunnel to get to repair without jumping out of that tunnel. Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing, I think, as well, is that you have to sit with the pain of whatever you're experiencing right now. And again, it's about learning how to regulate yourself, because that's not your partner's job. They
Not
can
your partner's job.
obviously help you sometimes, but I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, in order to have a long lasting, healthy relationship, you have to learn how to be, as you mentioned, whole on your own first, so that you have your own tools and tricks, you know, and then relationships have to constantly be worked on.
So a big wound for me would be to be undermined. My dad wasn't great at celebrating us, or achievements and things like that. So if I have an undermined feeling, when I take that moment and I say, oh, I feel really undermined in this situation, that to me is a childhood wound, that there could be slight possibility that I'm maybe overreacting, a slight possibility that I may be going to overreact. And it's about recognizing that in yourself,
Yeah.
And then giving each other that 10 minutes, 20 minutes to regulate yourself. What we like to do is take the break from each other. Sometimes I'll say, use like a safe word, like burnt toast or something. Take that break. But then what we like to do is, when we're on that break for that 20 minutes, we like to think about how annoying our person was. When what we have to do is regulate our emotions by taking the dog a walk, writing the list for the groceries, doing the box breathing, whatever it is, not thinking about the argument, not thinking about the thing. Get ourselves organised, and then come back with our I feel words. There's nothing more triggering than the word you when you're in conflict. And if you're an anxious, I'm going to guess you're going to use the word you quite a lot. And if you're with an avoidant, the avoidance cannot cope with that word you. It's just like having a finger pointed at them.
Yeah.
They don't seem to like it.
And it's all about the language you use as well. So like, that's a really important skill to have. Again, if you want to get past the honeymoon stage of a relationship and actually make it work with this person who you actually really like, it's all about, the way that you talk about the conflict. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the language you used even earlier is like, I felt. So it's not saying you made me feel, because they didn't make you feel anything. You made yourself feel that because something triggered you.
Yeah.
So again, it's learning how to use that language.
I felt, when that happened, I felt undermined, unseen, disrespected. And our partner having the ability to say, I'm sorry, I didn't intend that for 1 second. I hear you, I see you, and I'm so sorry. Not our partner say, well, I'm sorry you feel like that, because then that's more undermining, isn't it? And then we're back to the you word again. Yeah.
Or my number one pet peeve is, well, I'm sorry you felt that way.
Exactly. So we've got the you word in there. I'm sorry you
Yes.
felt that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw a really interesting podcast that you did recently about the silent treatment, which is the avoidance favourite thing to do, because they're really good at doing it. And us anxious people hate that.
And I miss it terribly. It's terrible, but I do miss it terribly. I coach people and they're still giving the silent treatment, and I sometimes look at them with little eyes going, oh, I miss it so badly, because it does. It feels like control. It feels like power. It feels like control. So that was my go-to. We would have a disagreement. I would deem it that I wasn't getting my way, and then I would give my husband the silent treatment for days upon days. And we were in therapy. She asked me about it, and I gave her the silent treatment for the rest of the session when she told me I wasn't allowed to do it anymore. It was terrible. But also when she said to him, she said, how does it make you feel? And he said, I can't reach her.
Okay.
And that broke my heart. I was like, that's it, never again. So then what I had to do was I had to go and give him a hug instead of giving the silent treatment. Talk about dysregulating nervous systems. Felt like my skin was going to fall off, but you know what? It didn't. He accepted the hug. We had the hug. We said, we'll figure this out. It's going to be grand. And we did. It was probably about who burnt the toast or something, or who didn't empty the dishwasher. Most of these arguments are normal everyday stuff, you know. So anyway, so I'm not allowed to do it anymore. So I'm a reformed silent treatmenter. Yeah, but it's hard. And when you've been doing a behavior since you've been a little girl or a little boy, it's very difficult. Yeah. The big things that we didn't know were we were so codependent. We didn't know we had to fill our own cups, and we didn't know that there were behaviors that we were using in conflict that were not helping our relationship at all. So learning to fill our own cup was a huge thing. Not depending on the other to fill our battery was a huge thing. I think the younger generation are getting that message now. I definitely think that's come around since our day. But
I think so too. I think it's really interesting how much younger generations are clued into doing the work on them and really getting to know themselves in order 100%. To have, because it sounds kind of silly, you know, it's like, oh, actually, in order to have a really good relationship with someone else, you actually have to do work on you first, you know, and people are like, all right.
But I mean, even like when I was at school as well, there was no like mental health days or, you know, I see my children going through school now, and even my big girls are in their 20s, but even my son, he's just 17 now, like he's had so much, you know, just normal classes once a week or the start of every term about mental health and how are you and how to score your mental health, things like that. I mean, we never had anything like that ever, you know?
Yeah. And so tell me love languages.
Yes.
How important are they to fulfill our relationship goals?
Well, it's important that we know our own, but it's more sort of important that we know what our partner's is. Yeah. So the test is free. You just go online, 5 love languages: time, touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, and gifts. I'm laughing to myself because I forgot one of them one time and I was mortified. So it's important to know what our partner's is and remember to speak to them in their love language. So obviously if you have a similar love language, your relationship's going to be slightly easier, but it doesn't mean that we can't learn to speak Japanese, you know. Or I'd have some guy sometimes say to me, she's like a Velcro girlfriend, like I can't get her off me, you know. So her love language is touch, you know. It's not that she's being a Velcro girlfriend. Her language is touch, you know. There can be, my husband's love language is acts of service. So it works very well for me. He drives me down here. He did acts of service, tidy around the house, you know, all that sort of stuff. Acts of service, brilliant. But it doesn't, it's lovely, but it's not my go-to. My go-to is, guess what? Words of affirmation. Yeah. So not that it's tricky for him, but he just sort of has to remember, you know. Same for me. I can say to him, oh, sweetheart, that's gorgeous on you, or your hair looks lovely, or this, or like that new shirt. And he's like, okay, cool. It's nice to hear. But if I take him a cup of coffee and a biscuit when he's cutting the grass or something, you'd think I was the Queen of Sheba, you know?
It.
And it makes life easier. It makes life easier,
The more you know your person. Because again, as you said, the biscuit and the cup of coffee could be the thing that makes him be the best partner to you for the rest of the day.
Exactly.
Do you know?
And the opposite is also true. Like if I just make myself a cup of coffee, it hurts him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
if he did that, it wouldn't hurt me.
Yeah.
But if he didn't notice that I got a new haircut, or that would hurt me. Yeah. So it's a lovely wee tool to start. It's a lovely wee tool. There's an argument style test as well. Online, there's different sorts of ones, but the one that I looked up one time was like, are you a Labrador? Are you a hermit crab? Are you a porcupine? And these are just fun things to do with our partner when we're in a good place. And then we can sort of say, when we are in conflict, okay, I feel my Labrador coming out now, or I feel it just lightens things up a little, and educating ourselves around all that sort of stuff, you know.
Do you get people a lot comparing themselves to other couples online? And I really want to ask you then, in a follow-up to that, do you think people should keep their relationships private? Like, do you think there's a lot to be said for not shoving your partner all over your Instagram and your TikTok all the time?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? It's a tricky one. The soft launch, I didn't know what that was. I heard about that a few weeks ago. I was like, what is this? See people's random hand in a picture. Yeah. It's a very tricky one. I think it's each to their own. I did hear this said one time, and I'm still on the fence about it. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it that you're just plastering everything over Instagram, and then if it breaks up, then ask for privacy. Now, I think you can, but I think it would be silly to think that people aren't going to have a wee bit of a problem with that, you know. So it's a tricky one. My husband said back in the day, I'll never be on that page. well, we're past that now. He's not that he's never off the page, but we're past that now. But it's tricky. It's tricky. And I think that people do need to show both sides in some ways. People do need to say, it's been a busy week. We have hardly had time to speak to each other this week. It can't just be always date nights in Paris, and there has to be a reality of it as well.
But in terms of like, do you think that privacy is something that it should be sacred to a relationship, in the sense of, and I'm not just necessarily talking about sharing your partner online, but in terms of, how some people might just talk about their relationship details all the time to people, and sometimes that can drive you or your other, I was going to say your other half, you or your partner insane. So is it like a core value to just honour privacy to a certain extent?
What we tend to do is we tend to only tell the bad things to our friends and family, and then sometimes our friends and family are like, but you remember he did this, and you're like, oh, when was that? I don't even remember that. But sometimes we only tell, we're not really giving the full picture, we're only telling the time he was late, or that time that they didn't pick you up, or that time. Yeah. So that can be a big problem with families. I see that quite a lot. My mum doesn't like him. And I'm like, what have you told your mummy about him? Oh, well, I'm like, okay, well, do you tell her any of the good things? It's about keeping that balance. I don't think we should be too private, because I think that there is a wee risk of our partner possibly saying, oh, don't tell, or just, I'm your special person, and you don't need to be seeing that friend, and no, you don't need to see your parents, and we can go down a very slippery slope there to a lot of control. So there is definitely a place to having people aware of what's happening in your relationship. But yeah, then boundaries as well.
Is that something that comes up a lot, actually? Is that like women, I don't want to just say women, but men, and they don't realise that they're being manipulated and controlled by their partner?
Well, I thought you were actually going to ask there, is it a lot with families not liking their partner?
Oh,
yes, because people moan all the time about their partner to their family, and then they expect them. In my practice, I think I make it very clear that I'm there. Don't wait till the wheels fall off. Come and get the tips and tools. So I don't get too many narcissists. They do appear, and they think they're going to win me over, which is hilarious. So funny. It doesn't make me laugh. I don't laugh, but it's very, very rare. Very rare. But there's a control there. There's we call it grandiose behavior. So they're the most important person in the relationship. So as soon as you see that, you're dealing with a situation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we spoke on the phone before we came in here to record about, I suppose, the fairy tale aspect, which I think is so interesting, because sometimes we just build up scenarios in our heads, don't we? And I mean, this goes both ways. You haven't even met the person yet, and you have convinced yourself they are the love of your life. So how does this happen, and how do we stop our brains from even, I feel like sometimes we can have a checklist as well, and it's like, if they don't meet the criteria of 4 things on this checklist, well, I'm not going to date them. And then you could be actually getting rid of the quote unquote soulmate by kind of pigeonholing yourself then.
And how many of us have, that friend, oh no, he's the, or no, and then actually that's the friend who actually works out to be the best for you,
Yeah.
It's about, it's the same thing we talked about earlier about the nervous system going offline. It's the same thing when we fall in love with, after 4 messages, the frontal lobe has gone on holiday. The policeman and the policewoman have gone on holiday. We're just back in that, cavewoman, caveman mind. They're going, oh, this is him, this is them, this is them, this is them. We're this is the one, this is the one. And it's about just going, okay, easy there, having a little talk to yourself. In my world, I talk a lot about my automatic negative thoughts, and I call her Shirley. But in this case, it could be, you could call this, okay, Mrs. Romance, let's just keep her on the straight and narrow here. You're a whole person. You're looking for someone to build a relationship with. You're looking for someone to journey this lifetime with. We all love romance and passion, excitement. We all love that. But it's just about trying to keep the mind making sensible choices, and when someone shows you who they are, believe them. So if they don't turn up, if they let you down, if you're sitting waiting for them at a date and they don't appear, they are showing you who they are. If they ghost you and they come back around again, they've showed you who they are. Believe them. Yeah. Don't have the universe teach you it 50 million times. Believe them.
I love that. I think that's so true. Everyone needs to know that. How long does it take us to fall in love? Do you know?
I know that those chemicals can last up to 18 months, so we just need to be careful that we've come out of those chemicals and then they're responsive.
You know, when you hear people and they've met someone once and they go, "Oh, I love them," or they've been dating them for a few weeks. You know, is it actually possible to love someone that quickly? I wonder.
I'm not sure, and I do think we fall in love.
Yeah,
I don't think this whole love at first sight and everything.
Do we fall in lust?
We fall in lust at the start. Yeah. And what is love? Love is respect. Love is kindness. Love is nurturing. Love, we have a thing in our house. Is that loving, caring, or kind, what you're doing right now? Love is kind. Love is respectful. Love is not just chemicals that, you know, love is building something. Yeah. And that's the sort of thing that's going to last the test of time.
Let's get on to the really important stuff.
I'm here for it.
Like the orgasm gap. How many times a week should we be having sex?
Well, there was a quick pivot. Love it. So they're telling us now that once a week is healthy. And they're telling us that there's a thing now called maintenance sex and, the hanging off the chandelier sex, yeah? And there's a place for both in relationship, you know? My whole thing is, you know, if a week passes and we haven't made some time for whatever intimacy looks like for you, let's just not get bogged down in what we imagine traditional sex is. Whatever intimacy looks like for you, if we haven't made time for that in a week, let's just register that and go, okay, where's our work-life, romance, relationship balance here, yeah? Because if 2 weeks then passes and then 3 weeks passes, we're like, okay, now how do we go and get this? How do we go and pick this up again? It's a little bit in the past here. So yeah, it's about just keeping... And the jury's out about this whole scheduling sex. I'm kind of with the whole, if you're looking at a weekend and it's getting to Sunday afternoon and you're like, okay, we haven't had sex now since last Sunday or whatever, you want to be saying, let's get a wee date tonight. Let's get the kids to bed early. Let's try and make time, you know? It might not even be sex, but it's definitely time for each other. Intimate time with each other, yeah.
And so tell us about this orgasm gap then.
Oh, yes. So... this is madness. Not madness. It's actually quite sensible. So, we are being told now. I've just downloaded the information there. Do you see me? I had to give myself a second just to go up there and get that information downloaded. So we're being told now that men orgasm 98% of the time from penetrative sex. Okay, and men orgasm 98% of the time when they're by themselves. Okay, women orgasm by themselves 90% of the time or something like that, but with a partner with penetrative sex 30%. Wow. Now I don't know if people are going to like this next thing I'm going to say, but here we go. That is not the man's fault. Own your pleasure. Own your orgasm. If you have not had an orgasm, say your words. Don't say it's okay. If it is okay, that's fine. If you've had a lovely time and you didn't get the prize and you've had a lovely time and you're honestly okay with that, brilliant. But if it's getting to 30-90, I don't think anybody should be happy with that ratio. Yeah. Own your words. Say, I didn't actually have an orgasm, so what could we do? Yeah. Own it. That is not, and don't fake it. Because you're really letting down the next girl who's coming behind you. Yeah. So if you're with a guy and you've been faking it and then that relationship doesn't work out and he goes, well, it worked every time with so-and-so. She's like, well, it's not working for me. It's like, okay, mate, this hasn't actually been working. That girl has let you down, yeah? Of course, guys need to be conscious and aware and involved and all the things and respectful and kind and nurturing and wanting to know if they are pleasuring their person, yeah? But we have to own this, ladies. We have to own this and use our words.
You've heard it here first. You're on it. And then how long do we need to be having sex for? I know you touched on that.
This is funny. When I heard this, I was like, oh my days. So apparently the average sex session is between 2 and 19 minutes or something.
Okay.
Which makes me laugh in all sorts of areas. But what I would say to people is sometimes I'd be coaching couples and maybe they've a couple of little ones, you know, and they're like, Lisa, I just don't have time. I'm like, you just don't have time. You don't have 15 minutes. You just don't have time. Now, don't get me wrong. There must be emotional connection. Women need emotional connection before they can go there.
Because we're like, journey. Don't they say that we're like a kettle?
Yeah.
So it takes us a while to boil, whereas lads just had up an on-off switch automatically, don't they?
Well, my mum used to say, guys are a switch and women are irons.
Oh,
like,
yes.
Yeah. So it just takes, so yeah, and men need to know that, yeah. But that warm-up doesn't all happen in the bedroom. That warm-up happens when he empties the dishwasher, when he gives you that wee cuddle. We need to be kissing every day for 6 seconds.
I wanted to ask about that, yes.
No strings attached.
Okay.
Either a kiss every day for 6 seconds, no strings attached, or a hug for 30 seconds, no strings attached.
And why is that?
Because that gives us that little bit of dopamine, that little bit of serotonin, and also for women particularly. Oh, you know, there's like people will say to me, we had sex on Saturday, he didn't touch me all week, and then he's like, oh, we're having sex tonight. And that can't go there. We need that little drip, drip, drip all week long. We need the little texts, we hearty texts, we need the wee check-ins, we need the kissing, we need the hugging. So then we're keeping the iron, iron warm.
Hot.
We're keeping the iron warm, yeah? Or we're not just waiting to flick that switch. I mean, I have people say to me, the first thing he said to me this week was, are we having sex tonight?
This is it. Yeah, you need a bit of a warm up first.
That's not good.
You can't go straight into the marathon.
You need that connection. Women particularly need that that emotional connection all week. It's the helping with the mental load. What does your day look like today? What do you need me to do? Where's the kids? It's that being invested in the relationship. You know, it's very, very, very so important.
And so on the other side of things then, do we know what the biggest cause of divorce is?
We don't know what the biggest cause is, but we know that it's going up. It's still going up. It's still going up. I mean, we're all out here banging the drum and it's still going up. I think people would like to say it's infidelity and things like that. I don't know.
Addiction issues probably too.
Yeah, addiction issues. People work, business. We are so much busier now. Like, I think about my parents growing up. My parents are both passed away now. But I think about the life that you guys are living compared to my generation even, the plates are so full, you know, and the relationship can sometimes just get kicked to the side.
Yeah,
just get kicked to the side. And if you're not getting that emotional connection at home, you might go looking for it somewhere else. If you're not getting that physical connection at home, you might go looking. There might be a wee easier option there that doesn't seem to be, you know. What we do know that keeps relationships is putting time and effort and prioritizing that relationship. Think of the relationship as its own living, breathing thing. It's two people who are building a relationship, like a garden, like a plant, like a business, whatever it is. But we have to nurture this thing that's between us almost, that we are growing together. Yeah.
And do you think that infidelity in a relationship is when someone is acting shady with someone of the opposite sex? Do you know what I mean? Because like they say, because everyone is like, oh well cheating is when you kiss someone else, but like cheating is when you text someone else that you shouldn't be texting, or hanging around with someone that you know your spouse, like, you know, where is the line there for you?
Following people on Instagram that you know that your spouse saw this. I'd have to say phones are a huge issue. A huge issue. My rule: no technology in the bedroom. No technology, not even TV. Okay. Not, some people go, what about a Kindle? I'm like, buy a flipping book, for God's sake. You know, no technology in the bedroom would be my, I've heard Mel Robbins talk about this as well. She's like, just leave it in the bathroom, for God's sake. Like, you know, why can we not be away from these phones, you know? Yeah. I just don't think having a phone in your bed is of any help at all. Yeah. And then you need to have conversations. Don't presume that people know where your line is, you know. Have conversations. Okay, we're in a relationship now. Like, are you still texting anybody else? I need to know, because I'm not texting anybody else. That's where I am, and that's where I would like us to be together. You know, Remember, not the you word, not that's what I want you to do. That's where I feel that we need to be. That's where I am, you know. And if one of your exes does text you, here's what I'll be saying. If one of my exes texts me, here's what I'll be saying. How does that work for us? Yeah, all that sort of thing. It can't even be like stuff you're following on Instagram, people you're following, things like that. It all has to be on the table. Just show people transparency. Because that phone is like a third and fourth flipping person in your relationship, and it can become very difficult. I see it all the time.
On that note, Lisa, thank you so much. And if anyone is looking for your services, or where can they find you?
Talking of Instagram, I'll tell you this funny story to finish. Sometimes I'll see people out and about, and they'll say, and then they'll go, "Oh, I'll give you a wee follow," and they'll go, "Why does my ex follow you? Why does my mummy follow you?" I'm like, I have no idea. I can't go there. I couldn't possibly say. Anyway, Instagram is the best place to find me, relationship.coaching.ni, or my website is relationshipcoach.com, I think. Instagram, I'm always there. All my services are there. The way to start work with me is I have a package that you buy, and that's called Let's Get Started or something like that. And that's where we go.
Thank you so much. I've learned so much, Lisa. Really appreciate
Lovely.
it.
Thank you for having
me.